I lived in a city in central Ohio that begins with the letter C, and it has a big college that I lived near. The town name is Columbus, by the way. However, I attended a different college than the one that I mentioned and made a 20-minute drive from the city to that college. I also worked nights as a pizza delivery man in the city and the surrounding suburbs. One night, I had an order in the town where my college was located, which is a smaller suburban city northwest of my hometown. Now, this call occurred during what my coworkers and I like to refer to as the quote, dead hour, which is just before the shop closed at 1 in the morning. I begrudgingly took the pizza, got into the car, and plugged in the address into my GPS. I noticed that the house was located off on a back road in what looked like a sparsely populated area of this town. Not thinking much of this, I drove up Route 315 to I-270 East and exited. After passing through the downtown, the cemetery, and the college, I drove through some subdevelopments and then onto the smaller road where the house was located. The GPS notified me that I had arrived at my destination, but to my surprise, the house was completely boarded up. I noticed, however, that there was a small shed in the back of the house that had a small window on it. There was a flickering light in the window. At this point, almost every red flag has gone off in my head, but I knew that my hard-ass boss would be pissed if I wimped out, in his words, on this delivery, so I proceeded towards the shed. As I got closer to the shed, I began to hear a rustling noise in the bushes next to the driveway. Then, I heard a man whisper very quietly, Here they come, Billy, here they come." At that point, a man jumped out of the bushes and 2 other men jumped out of the shed at the same time. They were carrying knives and were wearing these long robes with white masks. I made it back into my car just in time, but one of the assailants did manage to slit my arm a little bit. As I escaped, I could see in my rearview mirror the assailants were standing in the middle of the road and they looked pissed. I probably drove about 90 miles per hour on the way back to the shop. When I got back to the shop, everyone looked very surprised. After explaining everything to them, we contacted the police and they dispatched a few officers to go to that house. When the police got there, the assailants were already gone. But what they found left behind was even more disturbing. The police found some drug paraphernalia inside of the shed, along with some ropes and numerous torture devices. A few weeks ago, I got a new job as a pizza delivery guy. It was a pretty cool job, and it paid $8 an hour too. So this day, I'm told to go deliver a pizza to some apartment complex. Nothing out of the ordinary there. Upon knocking on the door, a pretty girl opens up and smiles at me. Suddenly, this delivery is turning out to be pretty sweet, I thought. I tell her the price of the pizza, and she says that she has the money in her room and asks me to come in to wait for her. Now, on any other circumstance, I'd say no, because that's the safe and smart thing to do. But hell, this girl was really attractive. Plus, what could she do to hurt me, right? Well, she returns from her room with the money, still smiling at me. And then she drops the change on the ground and seductively bends over to pick it up. And when she comes back up, she's still smiling. She gives me the cash and then she proceeds to tell me that I was cute. I told her thanks and that she was as well. The girl then asks for my phone number, but I tell her, laughing at the same time, that I barely knew her, and then she asks if I want to hang out with her for a little bit and we could chat. I say okay, but I could only hang out for like 10 minutes or so because I have to get back to work. Well, she leads me back to her room and we were going to share the pizza that I had just delivered. I look in her room and she has all of this BDSM merchandise on her walls. Handcuffs, choker chains, dirty panties, whips, etc. I kind of froze as soon as I took all of this imagery in, and then I said something along the lines of, "Oh, never mind, I can't hang out," and I noped the fuck out of there. I guess the lesson that I learned today from this experience is that even if somebody looks harmless and innocent, they still might have a bit of a dark side to them. So never trust a stranger and never enter a stranger's house under any circumstance. Or, you could have just not kink shamed the girl. She could be a feminist and that might have triggered her a lot. So, I am a female, and I worked as a pizza delivery girl. Easy enough. I was at work at around 9:30 p.m. when this guy calls with a very whispery, breathy sounding voice. I do my usual greeting. "Thank you for calling Pizza Hut. This is Coco. How are you doing tonight?" After the usual exchange, I find out that he is ordering for a delivery. He is a new customer, so I had to put in all this new information. Nothing weird about that, though. He tells me that he has a coupon for a pizza and asks if I can give him the discount. I told him that I'd be right back to get the manager and he will take care of him. However, this man then asks for me specifically to take care of his business. After I came back from dealing with my boss, I told him that we discounted him for his coupon. He thanked me, and here's where it starts to get a bit weird. He stopped me mid-sentence and told me that I, quote, have a very nice sounding tone of voice, and that he also loved hearing me speak, and that I should become a disc jockey. I was a little weirded out by this, but I tried to stay professional. I told him that it was very sweet of him to say that, and that I would consider it. He then said,
"Yeah, I'd sure listen to your radio station. Thank you for taking my order tonight. I'll stop by your store and see you sometime soon."
I really wish I could say it was over, but that's not the case. Note, this man lives in an apartment complex. What I didn't realize is that I had taken the complex's address, but not his apartment number. Not even 5 minutes later, this man calls back, and my coworker, Bailey, answers the phone. I learned after the fact that he had asked for me by name. I picked up the phone and did my greeting again, and he reminded me I forgot to ask for his apartment number. Nothing weird yet, again. I thanked him and changed his information, but before I could hang up, this was our conversation.
Coco?
"Yes, sir. How can I help you?"
Are you doing alright tonight?
"Yes, sir. I'm good."
Good. I'm going to hang up now. See you soon.
Bailey had heard this whole story and told my boss to have my male coworker take the pizza to his apartment. This is what my coworker came back with. His name is Bob, by the way. Bob said to me, "Okay, first thing he said to me is asking where you were, okay? So I got there, right? And I knocked on the door. He said in this weird, seductive sounding voice, telling me to come in. But I was not about to go into this weirdo's house. So I knocked again. He opened the door with a big smile on his face, but when he saw that it was me, and it just dropped. I greeted him, and he then asks me, "Oh, well, where's Coco?" I told him that you were here at the store, and he just looked very upset. After I took this guy's money and gave him his food, he asked how you were doing. I told him that you were doing alright, and he just said, "Good. Coco is a sweet girl. I'll talk to her and see her again soon." The fact that he asked the driver to come in, and the fact that he was expecting me to be the delivery person, creeps me the fuck out. Maybe he's just very lonely and wants someone to talk to, but still, he's definitely one more creep to add to my list. This next story is not a single story, but rather a collection of experiences from the same author.
Number 1.
I get to this house and knock on the door, but there is no answer. I can hear a TV in the background, so I knock louder, but still, nothing. I am just about to leave, but I think I hear a voice that doesn't sound like it's coming from the TV telling me to open the door. I yell through the door that I'm the delivery guy because I don't want to just barge into somebody's house, but all I hear is a wheezing sound, and again the voice beckons me to open the door. So I open the door anyway, and immediately the smell of death enters my nostrils. I scan the room and nothing is too weird or out of place, but I can see this gigantic and obese lady sitting on a chair, and I can hear her breathing, gasping at every breath she takes. She remains seated and asks me to put the pizza at her feet. She then starts writing me a check for the amount of money that the pizza is worth, but before she tears the check out of the book, she tells me to get her mail. Not asks me to get her mail, she demands me to do it for her. I do this for her, hoping that she'd give me a good tip in return. She tipped me 50 fucking cents. Fat bitch. Evidently, she does this all the time, and the guys back at the shop laughed and asked me about it. I hated them for not warning me.
Number 2.
A frequent customer of mine, a nice old lady who tips very well. I had delivered to her before, but had always done it at the door, and I was never able to see the inside of her house. I remember that it vaguely smelled like cats, but nothing too weird. However, this time, she isn't ready with the check in hand, so she bids me to come inside. I do so, and I notice that the house reeks of cat feces, and I can see a whole team of about 4 or 5 cats sitting on her love seat. I decide to scan the room a bit more while I wait, and I can see that there are 2 other couches in the room, but they are completely ripped to hell. More than half of the seats are stripped to the coils, and I can even see more cats inside moving around. Then my eyes come up and I can see that the litter box in the kitchen is full of cat feces. I was so happy when she finally returned with the check, and I never set foot in that woman's house after that again.
Number 3.
Had to deliver to a trailer park. No big deal, I just probably wouldn't get a big tip. It was pretty close to closing time and the night was very dark. I pull into the cul-de-sac of this trailer park and start looking for the appropriate place. I can't read the numbers on the trailers very well, so I get out and take a look around. There were a few empty lots, but I thought nothing of it, until I realized that the address is to an empty lot. I call the number, and I get no answer. So I noped out of there as fast as I could, and no one called to complain about their lack of pizza. The day after, my coworker has to do a delivery at the same trailer park, and he ends up getting robbed and slashed badly on his arm. His delivery address was to one of those empty lots that I had mentioned. I don't know how I managed to get out of there without being assaulted or robbed as well, but I'm really glad that I did.
Number 4.
Not a scary experience, but I remember that it was New Year's Eve and I had been making bank as holidays and football events usually fare. So I knock on the door of this apartment and a woman opens up wearing a very skimpy bathrobe with plenty to view, if you know what I mean. She apologizes and said that she had just gotten out of the shower, and she invites me to come in while she grabs her purse and starts rummaging through it for money, and out falls something. I bend down to pick it up and realize midway that it was a condom. I hesitate for a second as I understand what it is, and she beats me to it. She picks it up and laughs and says something along the lines of, "What a tip that would be." I laughed too and said something like, "Yeah, never had that kind of tip before." And she finally finds her money and hands it to me, a $15 tip. I thanked her and turned around, about to open the door, when I hear her yell, "Oh shit," as I hear her purse fall onto the floor. She seductively bends over and her robe rides up her backside. At this point, I am dead sure about what is going on, and I thought that maybe it would be kind of fun to, do it on the clock and fulfill all those porno dreams. Something in me says I shouldn't, thought, though, and that thought wins out. Whether or not that was the correct decision, I will never know. But I did make $150 more that night. Never delivered to that address again, unfortunately. About 12 years ago, in a suburb of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, there was a suspected serial killer on the loose. The running joke in our pizza shop was that it was one of us because the murders were happening in and around our delivery area. There was a seedy motel by a remote industrial complex right off of the highway. Everyone hated having to deliver there because it was mostly truck drivers, pimps, prostitutes, and druggies, and none of them ever tipped us. I got stuck having to go there at around 11 p.m. on a Friday night. As I approached the room, I could see the door was open slightly. I knocked and said hello, but there was no answer. Through the crack in the door, I could see a person sitting, so I nudged the door open a little bit. It was a frumpy, middle-aged, naked woman tied to a chair, blindfolded and gagged. She nodded as if to acknowledge my presence and turned her head in the direction of the nightstand. There was a note and some money on it. I scanned the room and didn't see any sign of anybody else, i.e. the person that tied her up. I read the note and it was something to the effect of, "This is our 20th anniversary and this was also my fantasy. Please look all you want, but don't touch, and keep the change. P.S. My husband is hiding and watching, so don't try anything funny." There was a $20 tip to go along with the note. I thought for sure that this was the last delivery I'd ever be making. I snatched the money and left the pizzas on the bed and backed out of there slowly. I have never been more creeped out in my entire life. Fortunately, there was no murder at that hotel that night.